Welcome to BALLBUSTERS Live. Gonna get hot after Buoyancy and wait. Can't send it over to the distinguished Nathan Oakley. He has some serious electrical issues going on. Don't we all? Let's send it over to the new MC for today, Mr. Evening. Mr. Evening.
Oh, hey. What's up?
You're not Mr. Evening.
Who's Evening?
My bad. I thought Freeman. Never mind.
Oh, Adam.
Well, wow.
Well, evening then.
There he is. I knew I seen you in there.
I had a little echo going off from that. That's a great intro, isn't it? It really is. I was listening to it.
It is. It's classic. I really like it. I like it updated, but I've pretty much relegated myself to that's never going to happen.
That was a strong word.
It is a strong word, isn't it?
Mm.
Okay.
Did you say no, Nathan, then tonight?
Nah, he has electrical issues, so we'll miss him.
He's in chat missing himself right now.
Oh, is he? Okay. Yeah. Hopefully he can get everything squared away by next week, by Monday. We'll see.
Don't need him tonight, though, do we? We've got Brian, haven't we?
Yep. Brian will be presenting on Buoyancy and Weight. He's hot after this. He's highly motivated, and his knowledge of the topic is top notch. So I can't wait for
it. This is going to be a very underwhelming presentation.
I don't think so.
Well, go on, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying that I didn't give myself the amount of time I actually needed. And so consequently, because I didn't do that, it turns out because I'm using a very old computer, my good computer is on the fritz, that to do things takes a lot longer than they should do. So I don't have all the diagrams I wanted to have and the ones I wanted to make. And I also don't have the citations and links that I wanted to have. So this will be, let's say, a preamble to a much better one in the future. But it still will have some meat on the bones.
Does that mean it's down from 3 hours to 2?
Oh, it's going to be down from, yeah, it's going to be down a lot lower than that. But because I'm looking back behind me and it's sunny and it's going to be about 58 degrees today with very little wind. Unlike yesterday, I was out there. It was like Dorothy in Kansas blowing me all over the place. I had to stop. I said, this might be a little dangerous. So I stopped. But today, that's a different story. We're going to get out of here most Ricky Tick. So we're going to get into this presentation quite fast.
Okay. Well, I understand there needs to be a bit of preamble at the start, but whenever you want me to start and get stuck into it, I'm ready to go.
Oh, I'll let you know.
If Adam's ready.
I'll let you know quick, unless Adam wants to add something. Who else we got in here? Kansas. Hey, there's Kansas. What the heck? Yeah, I was at Kansas yesterday. Yeah, it wasn't a good thing. I was dodging wind gusts. Shot pretty good when I was dodging them. But then it started to be sustained winds, and oh boy. It got a little shaky there for a few minutes, but like I said, I pulled the plug on it pretty quick. All right, so no one else wants to say anything. We got Nathan Thompson or Thomas or whatever in here.
Hey guys, good to see you.
Yeah. Got Flatsy, she's in Muscle Shoals. Listening to Skinner down there in Alabama.
Very subdued.
Eli's here.
Eli's here. I haven't seen him in a coon's age. He just right out the gate, he thought he was the MC of ceremonies and shit.
What's up, y'all?
Go ahead, MC. Adam, you're in charge. Shit.
I'm in charge.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Jeez.
I will try to be a benevolent leader.
Evening.
Evening indeed. If I'm in charge, I'll have a little pre-ramble myself. I like this.
Okay.
This is one of the topics that ballers try to hijack with G. That is fundamentally Archimedes. I'm assuming Brian will go into that, but it's a nice topic to look at how they try to hijack it and strap a G on.
I never thought of it that way. That's a good one. Nice one. They trying to slap a G string on her.
Definite G strap. This.
Interesting. Interesting take.
Yeah, the whole lot is very convoluted. Actually, to be honest with you, what I'll present tonight is more towards Archimedes and Newton than anything else, and their non-connection. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because if you go by what the ballers and the heliocentrists say, the two of them are connected at the hip. It's like they were living together.
Yeah, what I've gathered from 8 years of listening to Globers is that G is why it goes down, and without G, it doesn't go up either. Right?
That's pretty much it, yeah.
Good to know.
Are you done
Come on, Adam.
preambling?
You have to.
Are you
Well,
done?
I like a little pause with.
I don't mind a pause. I don't like those moments, or I don't mind the moments of uncomfortable silence. They're comfortable for me. But go on.
I'm just saying now that Nathan's not here, Adam has to. See, this thing about it, Adam. You want to speak like mad, right?
Yeah,
Until
yeah, but
you
when
have
you've got
to.
the power, right? When you got the power, it's fine. You see, you can take your time. Can't you? Well, I'm only giving the room opportunity before we do actually start. A little quiet in here. But anybody else then, before we beg Brian's presentation?
Didn't hear from Flatsy yet. Hopefully she's around.
She might be on the road. I told you she was in Muscle Shoals.
No offense, but that doesn't mean that to me. I don't know.
Oh, she's not home.
Whoa.
She's not home. She's visiting, I think, family members in Muscle Shoals, so she might be on the road.
Oh, no.
Not in charge of Superchat then. That's it. You in charge of Superchats or not?
Super fluid, super both.
There we go.
Supercharged, supermarket, Superfly. I don't think she
I
is.
would like a job interview that, Nathan. And you've got the job. So Superchats, Nathan Thomas is in charge.
Or
Nathan.
Nathan Thomas or whatever.
I'm a little busy. I wish I could help more. I got my dog I got to take care of. Sorry, guys.
All right, bro. I'll try and keep an eye on that as well. I'll try and multitask, even though I'm a man.
Fair enough. All right, we ready?
You ready, Brian?
That's a good transition right there, boy.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm
ready to go.
Slide number one.
He's ready. Gus is ready.
Yeah.
Before you start, Brian, everyone in Discord, if you hit QE live right at the top of the VC, you will see you will see the presentation. Sorry about that. Go on, Brian.
No, I'm ready to rock when given the go ahead.
Go ahead.
Get started. Okay.
Wait. I'm in charge and Superchat. Superchat QE. I know QE.
I'm sorry.
Well, read it.
Are you back? I said Superchat. No,
I'm
can
sorry.
shout
I was on
Superchat.
mute. Supercharged, Supermarket, Super Bowl, Superfly.
That's from Tony Whitcomb. Being made redundant from my existing job and before starting a new job educating staff on Flat Earth, Got tools to debunk globe. Thanks, Tony.
Appreciate it, Tony.
That and 9 then. Buoyancy and Weight by Mr. Brian.
It's weight and buoyancy. Get it right.
It says buoyancy and weight on screen. It's in front of me. And it's spelt wrong as well, Betty.
Oh, I didn't notice that. It's Beyonce.
And Beyonce and Weight by Brian's Logic.
Ooh, that's a very risky subject.
I didn't notice. I looked at it last night. It was late last night. I looked at it. I was busy. I was trying to get the website up, which, by the way, sorry about that. Sorry, Brian. The website is active. It is. I say again, it is active. So in betwixt that, and I was cooking dinner. I was cooking Wengies. And then I looked at this and I said, "Wait, man, I like the colors, but I didn't check the spelling." Oh, Betty, you got me. You got me, girl. Good one. We'll have to get that changed. So, Brian, without further ado, Beyonce and Weight, go.
Okay, yeah, we get started.
Hey,
Okay.
wait a second. Wait,
So-
no, wait.
Yeah.
I sent this to you also, and you gave it a thumbs up.
Oh yeah, but I didn't read it. I just pre-assumed that you had already pre-checked it. That's the truth.
Yeah, I got you. All right, Brian, she's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Okay, weight and buoyancy. What are they, and which one creates which? Okay, I have 9 parts to this. The first part is Archimedes and Isaac Newton. The second part is the phases of matter and their individual directions of pressure. The third part is what is buoyancy claimed to be. The fourth part is what is weight claimed to be. The fifth part is called equation problems. The sixth part is what is buoyancy in the real world. The seventh part is what is weight in the real world. The eighth part is given examples. Okay, that will be kind of a very basic slideshow. And the ninth part is conclusory statement. Okay, so if you would go to the first slide, please, or which will be slide 2, sorry, slide 2, please, Kiwi. Thank you. Okay, number 1. Archimedes was born in 287 BC, Syracuse, Sicily, died 212 BC, Syracuse, Sicily. Isaac Newton, born 1643, England, died 1727, England. Which means that Archimedes died 1,855 years before Isaac Newton was born, making any connection between them impossible. The reason I'm pointing that out is because heliocentrism wants to marry a force of gravity with buoyancy and make a force of gravity the cause of what they call the buoyant force. It's really convoluted. And as was said earlier by Nathan, you can't have a down without a G, and you can't also have an up without a G. So they're trying to insert G into both situations and say that one causes the other, right? Which is totally false. The one they're saying is the cause doesn't exist, right? That's how false it is. So, but the point being is there's the bones of 2,000 years between their existence, Archimedes and Isaac Newton, and what's on the internet and what's put out there is there's a lot of implication that these two things are the one, and certain equations, which I'll get into later, there's an implication that this equation is from this person and this other equation is from this other person, when it's not true. Okay, we'll move on. So, how does this fact impact history? All right, question mark. Firstly, it means that Archimedes could not have referred to the works of Isaac Newton when he developed his famous buoyancy principle. Secondly, it means that other people decided that Archimedes' principle was connected to the works of Isaac Newton, while simultaneously misrepresenting the works of Isaac Newton. So it was other people that made the connection between Archimedes and Isaac Newton. It was other people that did that while also misrepresenting Isaac Newton. So they've manipulated what Isaac Newton was saying, and what his Principia Mathematica was was trying to describe, and they've taken that, a malformed version of that, and they have tried to marry it to Archimedes' principle, which is buoyancy. And so the whole thing is not, it really has nothing to do with Archimedes and nothing to do with Isaac Newton. They were just going off the best information they had at the time, I suppose, at their time. Archimedes and Isaac Newton, they were two completely separate entities, as I said, separated by the bones of 2,000 years. Next slide, please, QE. Okay. Isaac Newton's Principia Mathematica was written in Latin, which means that the following words were not in it: gravity, mass, force, acceleration, or any other English word regardless of its Latin origins. Words that may have been in it were gravitas, meaning heavy or weight, i.e. that bag of grain has mucho gravitas, or much weight. Not meaning a force of attraction between masses that gives weight to those claimed masses. So on the first word there, I'm just pointing out that the Latin word gravitas, which would have had to have been that is the word in Isaac Newton's original Principia Mathematica, because he wrote it in Latin. It doesn't mean a force of attraction between masses that gives weight to those claimed masses. Gravitas doesn't mean that. It's a description. The next word then is massa, meaning an accumulation of stuff or matter, i.e. there is a massa of grain in the barn, or there is a large accumulation of grain in the barn. Not meaning something that is given weight by a force of gravitational acceleration. So the point being is that they're using the word gravity and the word mass, which are English bastardizations of the two original Latin words that didn't mean the same things. But they want to translate them over to mean what they need them to mean, or what they want them to mean. So they're translating gravitas over into English, and they're calling it gravity and giving it a different meaning. And they're taking massa, which is a description of an accumulation of stuff or matter, and they're translating that over to English and giving that a different meaning, and giving people the impression that these two words meant that when they were wrote in Latin in the Principia Mathematica. And I don't care, I'll call out Isaac Newton here. It's like, you can't write those words and give them a different meaning. They have a specific meaning, and they always had the same meaning in Latin. So if he wrote those words, he couldn't have meant what they claimed them to mean in English, because they don't have the same meaning. The words are derived from the Latin gravitas and massa, but gravity and mass don't have the same meaning. So if Isaac Newton wrote gravitas and massa, then he was not referring to what they claim today to be gravity and mass. Next slide, please, Kiwi.
Super chat.
Do you want to go for that super chat?
Just a quick super chat from Roger Ledwell.
Hey, hold on. Sorry, I was on mute. We're gonna do this super chat now, but any super chats that come during the presentation will be held till after. Okay?
I will do so.
Go ahead.
Still, he is for dummies. Thank you, Roger Ledwell. Go on, Brian.
Thank you, Roger. Next word is acceleratio, meaning a hastening or speedy movement, i.e. the man moved with mucho acceleratio, or much haste. Okay, it's another descriptive word. It's not meaning a change in the rate of velocity over time, as acceleratio in Latin is a descriptive term as opposed to a clearly defined physics claim, right? When you use the word acceleration in today's world, let's say in physics, right, when it's clearly defined as a change in the rate of velocity over time. Acceleratio was talking about a speeding up, a hastening, right? Then there is vis, meaning power, force, or strength. Once again, this is a descriptive term as opposed to being a clearly defined physics claim. Force in physics is clearly defined. But these things were not clearly defined in the same way back when the Principia Mathematica was being written. Because, especially because he wrote it in Latin. And the reason, according to online, why he wrote it in Latin, Isaac Newton that is, why he wrote his Principia Mathematica in Latin, is because he wanted to reach a larger audience. Because at the time, Latin was the biggest, the most widely spoken language in the world. I think it still is. Spanish is still the largest. Anything based off of Latin, the Spanish, Italian, that it's all still the biggest or the most widely spoken language in the world. Okay, Latin is a descriptive language, and describing is what Isaac Newton was attempting to do via his Principia Mathematica. He was attempting to describe motions in our sky. He was inspired by the works of Johannes Kepler and was originally encouraged by Edmund Halley to write the Principia. Okay, why I'm pointing that out is that a lot of people don't realize is that Isaac Newton didn't come up with the force of gravity claim they latch onto him. He already says in a letter, we know about the letter he wrote to a philosopher of his time, I can't remember the man's name now, that don't describe innate gravitation to me, because he wasn't trying to describe what they were trying to label him with. And it didn't start with him, it started with Johannes Kepler, as Kepler was his inspiration. And it was Edmund Halley who encouraged him to write the Principia. And this was towards, as they say, it's towards the end of his career that he actually started writing it. I don't know. I don't know if that's correct, but they say that's the case. But the point being is that it didn't start with what they're claiming to be a force of gravity. Didn't start with Isaac Newton. It started with Johannes Kepler. That's what it actually started with. So, and it was purely based off of the describing of motions in the sky and what's happening in the sky and pre-assumptions about what those lights in the sky are. So it was all speculation. That's basically all it was. But they've tried to make it into something more than it really was, and they've built a whole worldview based on it. But anyway, on to the next one, please, Kiwi, if you don't mind. All right, but who cares, as none of this has anything to do with buoyancy or Archimedes. Isaac Newton did not make any claims concerning buoyancy and its relationship to a force of attraction between masses that he never postulated to begin with. Isaac Newton attempted to make sense of heliocentric claims that originated with Johannes Kepler, claims based upon the pre-assumption that the lights in our sky are physical, tangible objects that move in a terrestrial fashion. Archimedes is claimed to be the greatest mathematician of all time. He was a famous inventor and engineer of his time. He had and has no relationship to Isaac Newton or Newton's Principia Mathematica. Next slide, please, QB. The point there is, in those first few slides, is there was no connection between these two people that they're trying to make. Whether Archimedes referred to the term weight or not doesn't mean you can just add in gravity. They're trying to hijack, right, buoyancy. Why are they trying to hijack buoyancy? Because it's the very thing that debunked all their force of gravity claims. Right? If everything has to be going down towards center of mass within their within their globe paradigm, then things can't be going up, and that was the problem. So that's why they've done their best to marry a convolution of what Isaac Newton was speaking about and Archimedes' principle about buoyancy. They've tried to marry the two of them because their buoyancy was the destruction of their paradigm. They've in recent times, obviously since Einstein, relaxed a bit about that, simply because Einstein is out there superseding Newton, so they can relax a little bit about it. But they're still, I could basically say they're still teaching children and people that that weight is caused by a force of gravity, and this weight causes buoyancy. They're still teaching people that, and it's not correct. It's completely false, but they're still teaching it. But what can you do? Okay, part 2. Phases of matter under specific pressures, excluding plasma. So I'm only solids, liquids, and gases. So each phase of matter has its own specific directions of pressure. These directions define the phase and its behavior. Okay, what I mean by that is, in reality, each phase has its own directions of pressure, and its behavior, or how we observe the behavior of these phases, will be directly connected to their directions of pressure. So solids have pressure in only one direction, and that's down. Solids are described as having what is described in popular culture as weight. So solids only have a downward vector pressure. That's it. They only have one direction of pressure, and that's down. Liquids have pressure in two directions, downwards and laterally, with their lateral pressure being caused by their downwards pressure, and their downwards pressure being attributed to them having, once again, what popular culture describes as weight. So solids and liquids are described as having weight, and solids only have a downward pressure, whereas liquids have a downwards and lateral pressure. Liquids' downward pressure, right, what we describe as weight, right, creates the lateral because it's a fluid. It will flow, but it's not like a gas. It doesn't expand upwards. So it only goes down, and because it's a fluid, it spreads laterally, and it creates lateral pressure then against the walls of its container. You know, because it needs a base and it needs sides. It doesn't need a top. Liquids, obviously, right? But gases have pressure in 360 directions, which means that they have pressure in 359 more directions than solids, and pressure in 358 more directions than liquids. So gases have pressure in like 359 more directions than solids and 358 more directions than liquids. So gases behave in a completely different fashion to liquids and solids. They don't have weight. What they have is pressure in all directions. And these things must be taken into account, obviously, when we're dealing with weight and buoyancy. And, you know, because why I'm saying that is that Archimedes' principle is based around solids in liquid, right? That's what it's all based around, because that's what he was famous for, was for ships, helping ships to be buoyant and to sail and all that. He was famous for that. But gases also have buoyancy, but they don't have weight, because people are under the impression that for buoyancy to exist, weight must exist. The medium must have weight. No, the medium must have some form of density, but it doesn't have to a calculated density, let's just say, but it doesn't have to have weight, because gases have buoyancy. The proof of that is with vacuum weights. So objects weigh more in a vacuum, and contrary to popular belief, because that's all it is a belief, because nobody actually went and checked it. Well, they did check it, but no one realized they did, is that objects weigh more at high altitudes. Why do they weigh more at high altitudes, not less? Because they want us to believe that when you go to high altitudes up a mountain, that the objects and everything weighs less, because we are moving away from the center of their globe mass. So there's less force of gravitational attraction. But that's a load of rubbish. Objects weigh more at high altitudes because there's less air, so there's less buoyancy. Less buoyancy means you have more weight, because the buoyancy helps to what's the best way to describe it? Buoyancy helps to give relief to what we would consider to be weight. So that's the thing about it. They want us to only have weight and buoyancy, and weight being connected to buoyancy, whereas gases have buoyancy, but they don't have weight. Air doesn't have weight, but it has a buoyant effect, as proven by vacuum weights and weights of objects at high altitudes. Next slide, please, QB. Okay, number 3. I'm sorry, some of this is a bit small. Hopefully, people can read it. What is buoyancy claimed to be? Buoyancy in popular culture is claimed to be an effect of weight, or more specifically, an effect caused by a force of gravity giving weight to a claimed mass, undefined. That is mass that is undefined. Buoyancy is claimed to be a force, and this buoyant force is a claimed effect of gravity, more on this later, which counteracts the gravity force, creating opposing forces. In simple terms, buoyancy is claimed to be an effect that's also a force, and this buoyant force / effect is caused by another force, and that other force is gravity. The buoyancy equation in popular culture is FB equals PGV. FB equals buoyant force, P equals density, G equals acceleration due to gravity, and V equals fluid volume. It's employed in popular culture that this is Archimedes' equation. Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. Right. Now, they're claiming that a force of gravitational attraction creates the effect that is also a force of buoyancy. So they claim a force is creating a force. Now, forces create effects. They don't create another force. Now, they're claiming that buoyancy is a force because objects will go up. Like you take a basketball, push it underneath the water, it will go up. So they're saying it's a force because the ball goes up. So they must say it's a force because they're claiming it takes a force for things to fall. See, they're saying that it takes a force for things to fall, but it doesn't take a force for things to fall. It just takes a lack of density in a medium and an object will fall. If there isn't sufficient density or resistance, the object is going to go through the medium. It's, depending on the object's density. That's what it is. So what they're trying to do here is claim two forces where one force creates the other force, which is a bit of a mess because I don't know of any situation where a force creates a force. Maybe you could say magnetism and electricity, but the two of them are kind of one and the same. You could say that a magnetic field will create an electric charge. You could say that, but I don't know. I don't see how a force creates a force. But they're trying to claim this force of gravity creates the effect of buoyancy, which then becomes a force. And as I said earlier, because they need to marry the two. But they go on then to elude, right? Because they imply, without stating it, that FB equaling PGV, and G being an acceleration due to gravity, is Archimedes' equation. G didn't exist. No mention of G existed in Archimedes' time. So it would be impossible for that to be Archimedes' principle, Archimedes' equation. It can't be Archimedes' equation if this G part didn't exist. He might have said weight. He might have described it as weight, right? Heavy weight. He would have described it as that, and he would have had his own way of, in Latin, of describing what he was trying to describe. But he didn't use G. That wasn't in existence. So when people see this FB equals PGV, they know that it is false because it can't be Archimedes, because none of that existed for almost 2,000 years after the guy had died. So that's false. Okay, next slide, please, Kiwi. Okay, what is weight claimed to be? Weight in popular culture is claimed to be caused by a force of gravity. It's claimed that a force of gravity gives weight to a mass, undefined. It's claimed that objects of mass, undefined, are being attracted to other larger objects of mass, undefined, and this attraction gives these masses, undefined, weight. What is the weight equation in popular culture? W equals mg. W equals weight, m equals mass, g equals gravity. It's implied in popular culture that the above equation is Isaac Newton's. This is another problem. They want to imply that that is Isaac Newton's equation, because they kind of need to, because they need to add that same G to the buoyancy equation. That's how they try and marry the both of them. They keep on trying to add this G in, right? In popular culture, weight is caused by a force of gravitation and attraction, and mass must exist. Now, as I pointed out earlier, the word gravity and the word mass were not in Isaac Newton's original Principia because they didn't exist at the time. They turned up afterwards. They're English bastardizations of the words gravitas and massa. So those words and those meanings could not have been in his Principia. It would be impossible. His Principia would have to be a fraud, because it would be impossible for those meanings to be connected to the Latin words he would have to use. So the whole thing is a convoluted mess. But either way, they want to imply that W equals mg is, like, they don't claim it, because I've looked at this. They don't outwardly claim it, but they try to imply that it's W equals mg is Isaac Newton's equation. Next slide, please, Kiwi. Okay. Number 5, equation problems. Is the equation FB equals PGV Archimedes' equation? No, this is definitely not Archimedes' equation, as it has a G in it that didn't exist prior to 1896, which is over 1,000. I actually had that. It should be more than 1,000. It should be 2,000 years after Archimedes' time. Is the equation W equals mg Isaac Newton's equation? No, this equation suffers from the same fate as the buoyancy equation, as it has a g in it that has nothing got to do with either Archimedes or Newton. This g is from 1896. It is based upon the pre-assumption that all objects fall at the same rate in a vacuum. It is a calculation by Charles Vernon Boyce. 2,108 years is the amount of time between the death of Archimedes and the birth of C.V. Boy's equation. 169 years is the amount of time between the death of Isaac Newton and the birth of C.V. Boy's equation. There is no buoyancy/gravity triangle of nonsense. It doesn't exist. Point being is that they've inserted, in popular culture, mainstream pseudoscience have inserted the G that was calculated by C.V. Boyce into equations that they're eluding are Newton's and they're eluding are Archimedes. And none of them are Archimedes or Newton's. They're not. That G was not part of, because that G didn't turn up for 169 years after Newton or 2,108 years after Archimedes. So it obviously couldn't be part of their equations. It would be impossible because it didn't exist. So that's how they try and marry it together. Because even at that, they try and make the claimed 9.81 meters per second squared acceleration rate that C.V. Boyce claimed. They try to claim that, or employ, this is the thing, this is another thing, they employ that is a measurement. That is not a measurement. That is a calculation based on a pre-assumption that all objects will fall at the same rate in a vacuum. And that will involve a perfect vacuum. So it's purely outside the realm of reality. But that is the G that they're adding into W equals mg, and the G that they're adding into FB equals PGV. It's the same G, right? It's not any G from Newton, and it certainly has nothing to do with Archimedes. Next slide, please, QE. Thank you. What is buoyancy in the real world? In the real world, buoyancy is nothing more than a density differential between the medium and the objects and/or substances that reside within it. This means that a correct buoyancy equation should be purely based upon a density differential ratio, a ratio that will be specific to each individual situation. For example, this ratio will change for an orange with its peel on and for an orange with its peel off when both are placed in the medium of water, and for a balloon that's filled with air as opposed to a balloon that's filled with helium when both are placed in the medium of air. The overall densities are different, so the ratio is also different. The point being is that what all buoyancy really is a density differential between the medium and whatever objects or substances are in it. And as I said, it is specific to the situation, but to correctly, to correctly equate it or to calculate it, you would have to just be purely working off of densities, which are concentrations. Because I'll get into it a little bit more in a while when I get to the slides, but this is how they work out. This is basically what they do when it comes to ships and stuff, because they have to treat, even though when they refer to density and when it comes to gases, they refer to equations things like grams and stuff, which are directly connected to weight and gravity and stuff like that. But that's how they calculate it, but it doesn't make the air have weight. They're just talking about a concentrated amount within a cubic centimeter or meter or whatever. That's what they're talking about. And that's all the buoyancy is that if you have an air-filled balloon in the medium of air, it will go down. If you have a balloon that's half filled with air, half filled with helium, it will sit in the center of your room. It'll sit there behind the floor and the ceiling. If you have a balloon filled with helium, it will go up. What's the difference? The only difference is the overall density of the balloon and what's inside of it. That's the only difference between the three. That's one goes down, one doesn't go anywhere, the other one goes up. It's only a differential between the medium that it's in, which is air, and the overall density of the balloon and what's in it. Because when it comes to shipbuilding and stuff like that, it's the overall density. That's what they calculate for the overall density. That's everything that's going to be in the ship, including any water that'll be in the ship, ballast and different things like that with their tanks and stuff. But also they're calculating for all the air that's going to be in that ship that's going to be flowing through that ship all the time, all the cabins, all the air. So they're doing a calculation based off of all of that. And that's what buoyancy actually is. Now, I'm pretty sure that Archimedes was working in that direction, but they have latched on this weight to him when really he was only speaking about water. It was all based around water and ships and the flotation and sailing of ships. That's what his principle was mainly based around, because that's what was important at the time. He didn't need to deal with air because there was no need to be addressing airplanes because they didn't exist at the time. But they have to use the buoyancy equation when they're dealing with airplanes because they're using air, and there's going to be air in the cabin and air in through the airplane. They have to take that into account as well when they're building airplanes. So buoyancy is taken into account in that scenario. There's no need for weight to be involved. There's no need for gravity to be involved. It's purely a density differential. Some things go down, some things go up, and it's purely based off of the density relationship of the object or the substance has with the medium it's in. There's no great wonder or mystery. Next slide, please, QE. Thank you. Number 7, what is weight in the real world? In the real world, weight is nothing more than an apparent effect of buoyancy, which means that technically weight does not exist. What we define as weight is purely colored by the fact that we live in the medium of air. So it appears to us that weight exists. Ironically, the density slash concentration of air, water, and everything else is calculated as a cubic function that directly invokes gravity and weight. But this preassumption is only due to indoctrination and belief. It's also easily debunked by one simple statement, which is that more buoyancy equals less weight and less buoyancy equals more weight. There is no weight, there is only different levels of buoyancy. It's just that simple. The point being is that weight is only apparent. Weight doesn't cause buoyancy. What we call weight and describe as weight is purely an effect of buoyancy. Because I can weigh myself in the medium of air on a weighing scales, and I can place that same weighing scales at the bottom of a swimming pool and float directly over the top of it and be 8 foot away from it, and the weighing scales will show 0. Yet it will show whatever 15 stone when I'm standing on it in air. The point being is that where did my weight go to? My weight never existed. All that existed was buoyancy, and how much and how little buoyancy that I have in the medium I'm in. How much buoyant support is my body, the weight, what they want to call the weight of my body getting. What is it getting? How much support is it getting from the air, from water, from anything else? This is why objects weigh more at high altitudes, because in low pressures. Low pressure equals more weight. High pressure equals less weight, because you have more buoyancy in high pressure. You're going to have more buoyancy in a high pressure than an object will have in a high pressure than low pressure, because in low pressure there isn't the same buoyant support. There isn't the same amount of air, so objects are going to weigh more. In a vacuum at high altitudes they weigh more, whereas in situations where there is a lot of high pressure, the objects will weigh less. This is why this nonsense about the equator. People saying when you go to the equator, things can weigh less than they did, let's say, north or south of the equator. That's due to convection, because at the equator, that is where we have the most amount of convection happening. That means the most amount of warm air, because the sun is never more than the sun based off of the latitudes, let's just say, although the sun is not, the latitudes don't give you the path of the sun, but the latitudes show different points that the sun kind of works between. And the equator region is never more than 23.5 or 23.4 degrees of latitude. The sun, it never moves anyway north or south more than 23.4 degrees away from the equator. That means the most amount of warm rising air will be happening at the equator. So if objects weigh a little bit less at the equator, that's why, because they have more buoyancy. There's that slight little bit more buoyancy which will allow them to weigh that little bit less. And that's the reason why. Not because of gravity or centrifugal force or any other nonsense. It's purely down to buoyancy. And that's what it's always been down to. And that's why they had to hijack buoyancy and try their best to hijack Archimedes, because their whole paradigm was taken apart by Archimedes. The fact that what Archimedes was just pointing out was just basic reality, went against their paradigm, and what they wanted to claim was Isaac Newton's force of gravity claims. Next slide, please, Kiwi. Okay, number 8, give an example. So submarines and ships, balloons in air, oranges in water, hot air balloons. So the balloons are kind of both in the same, but the submarines and ships and the oranges are separate. So if you go on to just the first slide, please, Kiwi, the first image. Okay, submarines. Okay, they're a perfect example of buoyancy, right? Because what they do is they have tanks within them called ballast tanks. And what submarines do, and this is something that I might actually do a presentation on in the future, is about how submarines work. They work horizontally. Submarines travel horizontally. They don't travel, like you might see in movies where you have submarines going in all different directions. Submarines travel horizontally. And they basically change their, if you want to call it an underwater altitude, right, vertically. So just like the reason I'm using the word altitude is because even though it's not the correct way to describe it, the point being is that they work very much the same as an airplane. They're just using a different medium. So they've traveled horizontally and they change their position vertically. That's what they do, and they change their position via the exchange of water and air. If you just go to the next slide, please, Kiwi. The next image or whatever. Kiwi?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that. I had to step out for a second. Go ahead. Next slide.
Oh, no hassles. Yeah, thank you. So this one, this is not my slide. This is one I got off online, and it depicted what I wanted it to depict, but I'm not sure about the forward and back if that was written correctly.
Okay.
But it's only the buoyant force and the weight I want to point out. So what a submarine does is they have large tanks called ballast tanks, and they're filled with air, right, a high density of air. And what they do is they replace that air with water, and that changes the overall density of the submarine. So then its ratio between the density ratio of the submarine and the water changes. So the submarine submerges. That's what it does. So when they want to bring it down further, they just fill their tanks more with water and remove more of the air. They compress the air. So it's not that they pump the air out, they compress the air, but they just add more water, which adds to the overall density of the sub. When they want to go back up, they pump out the water and release the compressed air back into the ballast tanks, and they go back up. So that's all. So basically, they have a rudder which steers them. They have, in basic terms, they have a propeller which drives them. They have a rudder that steers them. They also have 2 fins at the side and 2 small ones at the top. They will use for diving and raising. They can do it that way too if they need to. But the whole point is that it's like with an airplane in basic form. Rather than thinking about an airplane diving down or raising up in elevation, like the submarine keeps the nose in a horizontal line. That's what they do. They keep the nose horizontally with the tail, and they move forward via propulsion from behind, and they go up and down via the exchange of water and air vertically. So they're just using horizontals and verticals. That's the basics of how a submarine works. And the reason the submarine can exist is due to the taking advantage of buoyancy. So does the sub have more weight when there's more water in it? Or does it have less buoyancy? And does it have less weight when there's more air in it? Or does it have more buoyancy? In reality, what does it have? It has less buoyancy when there's more water inside it, and more buoyancy when there's more air inside it. It's that simple. There's no mystery, really. Next slide, please, Kiwi.
I'd just like to commend you on the colorful fish over here on the left-hand side. Are they more buoyant?
Good.
Are these heavier fish than these, or are these just more buoyant?
Exactly. Okay, on to ships. Okay, we have here just a list here. just the AB over at the left. AB is American Bureau of Shipping, so that's what that symbol means. Okay, so if you obviously, we've all seen it at some point. Okay, AB means American Bureau of Shipping. You have different symbols on what they call the plimsoll line on a ship, different letters and that depict different things. So TF, right, going by the standards of the American Bureau of Shipping, TF is Tropical Freshwater Load Line, right? So that will be the load line that will be suitable for tropical freshwater. Okay, so anything more than that won't be suitable. So you can have less than that, but you can't have more than that, because you won't have correct buoyancy in the water. And because you won't have correct buoyancy, you are likely to cause problems to the ship, and you're in danger, basically. You're putting yourself in danger. F is for freshwater load line, right? So that tropical freshwater is going to be warm freshwater. Then you have freshwater, which is cold freshwater. Tropical freshwater being warm will have less buoyancy, right? Whereas freshwater, just freshwater, will have more buoyancy because it'll be denser. Tropical freshwater is less dense, so has less buoyancy. Whereas cold freshwater is more dense, so has more buoyancy. So the medium's like obviously that's why I'm saying you must take the medium into account, and this is what they're talking about here. The medium of cold and hot water, right, can change how much you can put onto a ship, how much you can load onto a ship. Obviously, it's not going to matter if we're in a smaller boat, right? But if you're talking about a ship with a lot of weight on it, cargo, oil, all these kind of things, then these things are very important, because just the density of the water, it doesn't matter how well you're sailing. If you're sailing from cold waters into warm waters and you don't change the load, then you're dealing with a situation where your density ratio in relation to the medium you're dealing with is going to be out of kilter, and that's going to cause danger. Next one is T for tropical zones load line. Now, when we're talking about tropical zone load line, they're talking about let's just say if you were near the equator, if you were in the Caribbean, places like that, where you'll have warm salt water, but it's salt water, so it's more dense than fresh water, but because it's warm salt water, it's going to be less dense than, let's say, medium temperature or cold salt water. So obviously, if they're sailing from the Atlantic down the North Atlantic to the south or to the equator region, let's just say somewhere like that, then they've got to take into account that they can't have a load that's going to be too much when they get to the warmer waters. They can't have that. Next one is summer load line, and that will be for when you're in waters that are in summertime waters. Waters, let's just say, off of the coast of New York, let's just say. In the summertime, those waters are obviously going to be a lot warmer than in the wintertime. So there's going to be a big density differential between those two, between those waters from summer to winter. And then you have winter load line. We'll use off the coast of New York again. Obviously, the winter time you can have greater density, so you can load the ship more. So in the winter time, you can load the ship up more than you can in the summertime. Or in cold water, you can load the ship up more than you can in warm water. Then you have winter North Atlantic load line, and the winter North Atlantic load line, that is going to be, obviously, you're dealing with a situation where you have the most buoyancy, because you have the coldest salt water. So it's going to have because it's going to be the most dense. So most dense, unless it starts to turn into ice, then obviously it won't. But once it stays as liquid, it's going to be the most dense. So that's going to be the most buoyancy you're going to have in the winter in the North Atlantic. So that's what that means. That's what the symbols on the side of that what they call the plimsoll lines on the side of the boat is. It's all based around buoyancy. So does the ship if the ship loads up and has weight, let's just say, as they describe it, and it goes from cold water into warm water, and it starts to sink, does it have more weight then, or does it just have less buoyancy? Or if it goes from warm water into cold water and it rises, does it have less weight, even though they didn't change the cargo, or does it just have more buoyancy? It obviously has more buoyancy. When it's going from warm to cold, it gains buoyancy, because the water is changing in density. When it goes from cold to warm, It's losing buoyancy because the water is changing in density. So there's no weight, is there? What's weight? It's a nothing. It's a nothing that they need. We don't need it. They need it. They need it because they need people to be stuck to the side of a ball, in a vacuum. They need that. We don't. We just need, in reality, your claimed weight will change depending on the situation you're in. That's the truth of it. Next slide, please, Kiwi. Okay, this is displacement. I'm putting this in there because I haven't really addressed displacement in this presentation. Okay, you have a ship that's 10 tons. When you place that, technically, you place that into a tank and it displaces 10 tons of water, right? If you add another 5 tons to that, it will displace another 5 tons. So instead of displacing 10 tons, it will now displace 15 tons. This is true enough via calculation, at least, as long as you're dealing with a situation where there is flotation going on and buoyancy. What I mean by that is where this is not true is that I can make something out of glass and make something exactly the same out of steel that will both sink in water, and they'll both go to the bottom of a tank, let's say, of water. All right, there might be exactly the same shape, same design. That means they're same dimensions, so they're exactly the same volume. But one is heavier than the other, but yet they will still displace the same amount of water. So yes, this is true if we're talking about something having buoyancy and floating. Yes, it is pretty much correct. You couldn't really deny it. It's used all. It's no point in denying it's used all the time within calculation. But it's if you want to get pedantic about it, it's not correct if we're talking about things that just sink, because glass and steel will just sink. So if I have two objects made of one of glass and one of steel, and they're both exactly the same dimensions, same volume, when they sink to the bottom of the tank or of the water, they're going to displace the same equal amount of water. But what they try and say here is tons. So they're saying tonnage of water or whatever weight of water. But the point is that, as I said, that's only applicable if the thing is floating. These equations, it doesn't hold true if both objects, let's say, sink to the bottom because they're just too dense for the medium. What are they displacing then? How does the weight come into it then? It doesn't. Because that's going to displace the same equal amount of water. So which one of them does this weight of water then attach to? None of them, if you understand what I mean. Because they're displacing the same amount, but yet the steel object is obviously going to be heavier than the glass object because it's more dense. But both of them will sink to the bottom. So yes, that's true. This is true when it comes to flotation and buoyancy, but it doesn't hold true if you're talking about volume displacement, where the objects are equal but made of different materials, and they'll go to the bottom of the tank or the seabed or whatever. Next one, please, QE. It's one with a ship on it. Okay, thank you. This is what they try and say. This is the two forces. So gravitational force is forcing the ship down, and the buoyancy force that's created by the gravitational force is pushing it back up, right? When none of that is happening, all that's happening is what they're calling weight is like that ship, when that is in cold water, it'll be higher in the water, that red line along there. When that ship is in cold water, the more that red line will be above the water. When that sails into warm water, if the cold water is calm and the warm water is equally calm, then you will see that there's less of that red line can be seen because there's less buoyancy. So there's no gravitational force, there's no weight. It's just a case of how much buoyancy that ship has. That's all it is. There's no big drama or mystery. Next one, please, Kiwi. We're almost at the end. Okay, orange. This is a very simple one. A lot of people might have done this in school. But when you have an orange with peel on it, it floats. Whereas when you take the peel off, the orange will sink. Why is that? Well, it's a density differential ratio, because the one with the peel on it also has air and gases trapped inside of it. When you remove the peel, you remove them. So you remove its buoyancy. So that's why an orange without its peel will sink to the bottom, because it doesn't have, even though it has less, and this is I have to say it about Flatside, he was pointing this out. some while back, and it's very true. Technically, according to their paradigm, right, the one with the peel has more mass, so that should be going down, whereas the one without the peel should be up at the top. Right? If you go by the paradigm that they want to push, there's more mass, so that means that should be at the bottom, and there's for the one with the peel, and the one without the peel has less mass, as they describe it, so that should be at the top. But in reality, it's the opposite way around, showing again that their paradigm is completely wrong.
I really like this. Not particularly because I just ate an orange. I just got done with the last piece, but this should this should grow some hair on your backs if you're paying attention out there. Yeah. Continue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please continue,
Thank you.
Brian.
Yeah, it's almost done anyway. But the point is that this proves that it's purely a density differential ratio issue.
Yep.
There's no weight, because technically the orange with the peel has to have, it's more mass, so it has to have more weight. But this is the problem they kept running into. Oh no, buoyancy. So they have to try and hijack the very thing that took them apart. They didn't just get to the point where going, maybe we're just wrong. No, they kept on pushing it, and now they have a paradigm that doesn't work, that sits outside of reality. And that's, and a simple thing like this with the oranges, I know why you like it, because it's so simple.
Yeah,
it just
you
proves
got that
they're
right.
wrong.
You definitely got that right. Because you know what? You're baltards. I'm going to take this. I'm going to slap you around a bit. All right?
Okay, next slide, please, Kiwi.
Before you go on, Bri, I'm just going to...
Yeah.
Kiwi, can you stop interrupting the presentation, please? As excited as you are, I know you're liking it. Let Brian crack on.
Stuff it.
Okay, the last one then, QE, one with the hot air balloons, please. Okay, this is a very simple, very, very simple scenarios that are putting out here. And a lot of people on the opposing side might go, yeah, ships, submarines, oranges, hot air balloons, because that's what they'll do. They don't understand. They'll try and hand wave it away based off of the simplicity of what's been shown. But that's actual simplicity in the small scale and the huge big scale with big ships and stuff of the same thing, just in reality. Their opposition believes that everything has to be complicated, and they can't accept something just being simple and true, and they can't accept that. So they may think that these examples I'm giving are not very complicated or in depth, but they don't need to be. These are real world examples. They don't need to be complicated. They're just simple, and they work, and they're used all the time, because that's reality. To use a hot air balloon, you must use reality. To have a ship or a submarine, to design one and make them sail, you must use reality. To explain what's going on with that orange, those two oranges, you must use reality. You can't refer to a paradigm that doesn't have any connection to the reality. It doesn't make any sense. When it comes to the hot air balloons, you have 3 hot air balloons. The one at the closest to the ground is 90 degrees C in temperature. The one that's next up from that is 95 degrees C in temperature, and the highest one is 100 degrees C in temperature. So the whole point there is, when that balloon is on the ground, right, and the basket is on the ground, and they just have the balloon inflated, does that have more weight then than when it's up high in the sky and has 100 degrees C of temperature inside in the balloon, heating the air? No. What's the difference? Right, the same amount of air is in there, but obviously because it's being heated, it's expanding. So it's lessening in concentration, let's just say, per cubic centimeter. But the point is that the same amount of everything is in there. The same amount of air is in it. The basket is the same. The balloon is the same. The ropes are the same. The people are the same. Nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is the density differential ratio. That's all that's changed. They've changed the density, the overall density, and this is the most important term, is the overall density. The two terms I'd like people to remember from this presentation is overall density and more buoyancy, less weight. Less buoyancy, more weight. It's that simple. So the overall density of the hot air balloon is being changed, and that either brings them up, brings them down, or keeps them at level flight. Just like with a submarine. There's no weight involved. It's just a case of the manipulation of density. And what is density? It's a calculation based on concentrations. So the overall amount of matter is the same in all those three hot air balloons. The only difference is the manipulation of its density, of its overall density, right? Because density, obviously, when people think of density, they think of solid objects and different things like that. But this is more from a calculation point of view. So to calculate for air, within these things, they must give air a density. Now, people can argue air doesn't have a density and gases don't have a density, and I understand that argument. But to calculate for these things, they must calculate it the same way simply because it behaves the same way. When it comes to buoyancy, the use of the air and the use of water or anything else works the same. So it doesn't matter whether air can be claimed to have density or not. The point is that the effect is the same. The effect using temperature, hot, cold with air, hot, cold with water, or any other fluid is the same. Once you're changing the overall density of the ship, the hot air balloon, the submarine, the orange, it changes its position vertically in the medium, regardless of what that medium is. It changes its position in that medium. Okay, last slide, please, QE, which would be the conclusory statement, number 9. Okay, conclusory statement. Archimedes has nothing got to do with Isaac Newton. Weight is only an apparent effect of buoyancy. Weight doesn't actually exist, whereas buoyancy is only a density differential ratio between a medium and the objects and/or substances that reside within it. Sometimes these things go up, sometimes these things go down. And what's density other than a calculation of concentration per centimeter cubed, etc. So the point is that the removal of weight from your mind will help you to understand reality better. That's the easiest way to describe it. When you keep on trying to bring weight into it, it's going to, and think of things as weight creating buoyancy and weight doing this, that, and the other thing. No, weight is the effect, not buoyancy. Weight is the effect that we're measuring on a weighing scales the amount of buoyancy that something has. That's what we're weighing. It has this much buoyancy at this time in the scales in this medium. That's the amount of buoyancy it has. It doesn't have weight. It only has a level of buoyancy. And this level of buoyancy, if we wanted to make a scale of it, its level of buoyancy is at -4. Whereas when you bring it into this medium or you change the temperature of the medium, its level of buoyancy is -2. Do you know what I mean? Whatever, if you wanted to make a scale, a simple scale on it. The point is that weight is the effect, not buoyancy. Buoyancy is I suppose buoyancy is an effect as well, but the point is that weight is an effect of buoyancy. Weight doesn't, when I say, even, it's hard to explain. Weight doesn't really exist. That's the point. What we think of weight, or what we think exists as weight, is only due to buoyancy. There is only buoyancy, there isn't weight. I won't go on any further with it because I think it's pretty clear. Thank you.
Can I say something? Good stuff,
Yeah.
by the way.
Thanks,
But, I
Brian.
mean, isn't
Right,
it basically,
Superchat.
aren't they just
Superchat.
conjoined together?
Superchat. Oh, and just bear with me, mate.
Sorry.
We'll come to the panel in a sec, guys. First of all, super chat.
Super salad, supercomputer, superstition, superconductor.
Thank you. Now I can read it. Accade se babavrati. Only joking behind the scenes. That's from the Tox Femi. I don't know what that. I don't know if that was witchcraft what I said or whatever. But here's Sasha.
Witchcraft.
Yeah, it's Brian. That was wicked.
Right.
That was
But
wicked.
Perfect.
the
Yeah,
point that I
really.
want to make, you were like, it's kind of weird how they're together, buoyancy and weight, right? But aren't they basically like the conjoined opposites of each other? So there's like, you can't really tell which one is which. They just happen together. Could that be stated?
Well, I think the easiest way around it would be to remove weight altogether and just to look at things from what level of buoyancy the object or substance has, as opposed to seeing it as having weight. Because we are conditioned into a weight paradigm where everything must have weight, and it's given to everything by a force of gravity, and that's what keeps us to the side of a sphere in a vacuum.
Yeah, but
you know
that's
what I mean?
also, sorry, you're right, but they also then basically ignore the properties of air and declare it a liquid effectively in that process. So it's a little
Well, they claim air has weight. See, everything must have weight within their paradigm. Air must have weight. Everything must have
right.
weight. And they have these sideshow parlor tricks that they try and use to try and give air weight. And show, there was one I saw where they have two balloons on this kind of let's say a stick that has a pin in the middle of it that's connected to another stick that's 90 degrees to it. And they pop one of the balloons or leave the air out of one of the balloons, and the balloon with the most air then pulls down on the stick. So it's like as if it's heavier, but it's not. What they've done by releasing the air, for a start, if they just release the air, they've caused an interaction once they release the air that will cause a movement of this stick thing. But what they're not understanding is both balloons have the same density, right? Without any air in them. In the medium of air, they both have the same density ratio to the air. But the balloon with the air in it has a downward pressure, right? Because of the pressure, the gas pressure, the air pressure that's in it. And that downwards pressure, right, and density, the overall density of the balloon, in comparison to the air, gives the impression that the balloon has weight. But when if you heat that balloon, it will go up because you change the density ratio. So where's the weight?
Well, the
They're
weight
trying to
is
give
in the
weight to
rubber.
something.
Right.
You know?
It's in the rubber.
Before we go
The
too
rubber's
far off
solid.
the topic, go. Owen, just bear with me, please. I'm in charge. Yeah. Seriously, before we go off, this buoyancy weight, the way you've described it is beautiful, and I don't disagree with it. The thing I would point out is this is a recognized point. It's why we have RTP, STP. Yeah. And as Brian's like distinguished, we've got buoyancy, and we've got buoyancy in air at this point. This is what weight is. But it's also important that we have it at RTP and STP, standard temperature pressure, room temperature pressure. And that distinguishment demonstrates the point that Brian's making. And that difference of 5 degrees has an effect on the buoyancy that the air is making. And just one of the points from the presentation, Brian, that I really like that you made is that liquids have weight and buoyancy. Gases have buoyancy but no weight. It's really important when we're trying to understand the concept of weight, and how it's defined. That was a real subtle nuance that I'd like to reaffirm, because it's important to understand the concept, but it also destroys the baller's point. They need gases to have buoyancy and weight, and I think as Brian's aptly shown, they don't have any weight gases. They do have. Go on, QE.
Sorry, no, I had to say to the ballers.
Gotcha, bitch.
It's a really good, important point, isn't it?
Yep.
I think.
Right. But I do agree. Sorry, I want to make a short point. But there's still, we got to take into consideration that the ballers, in their attempt to abuse the weight, they are basically just cheating. They are making claims about the state of gas that just it doesn't happen, right? They're treating it falsely by treating it as a fluid, basically a liquid, and thereby assigning this standard weight to everything, which it just isn't true.
I think that's the point I'm making, Arwen, but mine was more eloquent and relevant. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we agree.
Well,
Yep. That's exactly what it is.
What they do is they call everything that's going down weight, and then they say anything that goes up, oh, that's buoyancy. And it's nonsense. It's like things go down, things go up. And it's not weight, it's just buoyancy and levels of buoyancy. That's all it is.
Yep.
If we want to really be honest about it.
Yes, sir. That's exactly what it is. Outstanding performance.
Perfect.
Thank you. Perfect.
That's what it is, folks. That's all it is. It doesn't get more complicated. I love this presentation, by the way. Loved it.
I was hoping, I was afraid people would hate it.
No.
Because there was so much right.
No, it's very simple. And it's documented for everyone to see. So, ballers.
It's like,
Damn!
Guess what just happened to you?
You got knocked the fuck out, man!
That.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think it is far more simple than it's made out to be. They want to complicate everything because they have to. But that's their problem, because we don't have to live. We can just live in reality, and they can do whatever they want and fade off into nothing, into obscurity eventually, because that's what they're doing at present.
Nothing for you.
I've got a super chat, QA. Super chat.
Superchat, supercharged, supermarket, Super Bowl, supernatural.
Roger Ledwell. Thank you, sir. What is the cause of its moving? What is the cause of its moving? Not sure what, but maybe anyone on the panel can help. Thank you, Roger.
Thanks, Roger.
That's the age-old question. Why does it go up when we change in density? Why does it go down when we change in density? Why does the hot air balloon go up when they heat it? Why does it come back down when they cool it? Do you know what I mean? Why does the submarine do what it does? It's like nobody actually knows the answer to that question. They've tried and tried and tried. Nobody's gotten to that point of actually knowing. I tried to explain it via what was I called it, Adam, in the past? I can't remember it now. Structural support.
It's called buoyancy.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
It's
Just
called
a
buoyancy.
really fantastic presentation on buoyancy. That's what the cause is. And if it's going to move, there's going to be a change, as you demonstrated with the hot air balloons. We heat it up, and we've got less gas molecules taking up the same space, creating the same pressure because they're moving faster. They've got more temperature. Yeah. And we've got a change in the relative buoyancy to where it was a minute ago. So it's going to move. That's the cause, Roger, to me. I understand now. Yeah. It's exactly Brian's presentation. Yeah. If we change the relative density, yeah, then it will force an equilibrium change, won't it? That's what makes the hot air balloon go up as we heat the air up in the balloon. That's the cause.
Well, if you treat it as, let's say you treat the hot air balloon as an overall density, right? When you heat that air and that air starts expanding, so what's happening is there's more movement, so the balloon expands. It's like having a drop of water you take a drop of water and place it onto your tabletop, and then you smear it around. You're changing its concentration. So it's kind of bizarre, but it's a concentration change. So what's changing with the submarine? The same thing is happening when you're changing from water to air or air to water. It's a concentration of matter change. There's a less concentration of matter, and where that less concentration of matter should be, within vertically, let's just say within the medium that you're in, it'll go to. So the submarine, when there's less water, more air in its ballast tanks, it goes up. When there's more water, less air, it goes down. Because the overall concentration of matter has changed. That's the only way, because I think that's the only way we're going to end up being able to describe. I think we'll only ever be able to, I don't know, but it's going to be one of these things we might only ever be able to describe. because why does it happen? It's like it's forces maybe outside of
No,
their
that's
understanding.
that's the wrong question. How does it happen is the question.
Oh, how does it happen? Yeah, actually, you're right. Correct. How does it happen? Yeah.
Yeah. You just did it. It's when you said density differential, it took me back many, many years. And I was just smiling from ear to ear. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks. What did I remind you of?
I came out
Hey,
here.
Brian, one of the most
They asked me to describe it. Was way back in the day, and somebody brought up buoyancy, and I said, "Density differential, baby." Many, many years ago. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Oh, Nathan.
Yeah, Brian, one of the simplest but I think most poignant memes that you shared was the orange. And couldn't another analogy for that be a gentleman puts on 10 life jackets? Now he's more massive, but yet when he jumps in the water, he has more buoyancy. So that's another
Yeah,
example
same
similar
thing.
to the orange.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Exactly the same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly the same thing. Yeah.
You weigh
I
a
mean,
lot more
their whole
on
thing just falls
output.
apart right there. Their whole gravity thing just falls apart right
Don't
there.
go away from the orange, dude. Don't give more analogies.
All right.
Nathan
great
Thomas,
orange, yeah.
Nathan Thomas,
good
or
orange.
whatever.
Sorry.
Well, I like the guy on board ship with 10 life jackets on, weighing 15 stone instead of 12. Yeah. Then he jumps in and he can't sink. It kind of highlights the point.
I stand corrected.
And he's
Yeah,
put on a
because-
rubber ducky lifeguard.
I was
You should
thinking
have
that.
liked
I was thinking that same thing when you said that.
He could get in that water and pull out his sextant, couldn't he? And he's
Yeah,
got no
exactly.
dick correct for.
If we use the Latin term of massa, right? What you would describe that as, if the person putting on the life jackets, they have a greater massa, as in they've increased in their massa, right? Their amount of overall concentration of matter, but that doesn't make them heavier. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Whereas in the paradigm of mass in English, more mass equals more weight, whereas it doesn't in reality. If you want to use the original term of massa, more massa doesn't mean more weight, it just means more stuff.
Yes, sir. Outstanding performance. If you were here, if your Irish ass was here, I'd decorate you right now.
Thank you.
Adam.
Yeah, Brian, you could date my sister if I had one.
Adam.
Thanks.
Adam, guess what's going to happen now?
Is Brian in charge next time BALLBUSTERS is on?
Now, what's going to happen now is take us home, sir.
Going already?
Yes, sir.
Is the air that clear and ready for arrows?
Yes, sir.
4 more hours.
No, sir.
If I got to take us home, then I'll start with the. I agree. Outstanding presentation, Brian. I love a bit of history. And as I alluded to at the beginning, they're going to try and strap a G on. You demonstrate beautifully and in a less vulgar manner exactly what they try to do. It's not there. These two guys never met by 2,000 years. To try and conflate them is what they do. And why do they try and do it? I mean, the key takeaway for me from the presentation was it's a bit like their horizon, their edge, isn't it? They what we've demonstrated today is why they have to try and claim that air has weight. Yeah, it's a really crucial point. Yeah, really crucial point. Before I go, Roger Ledwell, thanks again. They was for Dell. Many things are for Dell, but they are yet to come, Roger. So yeah, Fry, Wicked, Betty.
Thank you, Adam.
Buoyancy and weight. It will always, nice. Over to you, QE.
Outstanding. Thanks a lot. like I said, again, Brian, outstanding presentation. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming. We're gonna check out here. Be very alert. That is weathered eye and weathered ear open for the next treatment, because it's gonna be megalithic. Look the hell out. As for the presentation today, ballers, I got your attention. Guess what just happened? Yeah. Guess what just happened? Guess what just happened to you?
You got knocked the fuck out, man.
Now fuck off.